Hi, it's Peter and
Derek?
we do welcome you as a DevMentors, right?
Yeah. This is actually a special moment in our YouTube career,
Yeah.
since this is actually the first time that you have the opportunity to see our faces. Yeah.
Eventually. And today we are here to talk about our latest project related to microservices in .NET Core called Pacco. But before we get into the Pacco and how to start it, how to set up infrastructure, and how to play with the open source code, let's talk a little bit about the history, right? What was before the Pacco happened? Because probably there is a chance that some of you might already know us or somehow heard about us. It was like over a year ago, close to 2 years ago, we made our first free course on YouTube called Distributed .NET Core.
Yeah.
So you can find it on our website. When you scroll down below, you can open the link and go to the YouTube channel. And here you will find about 15 episodes, which is like close to 20 hours, I guess, about actually building microservices with .NET Core. It was we did it in 2.1 version of the framework, as far as I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not 3.1 but 2.1, but it was okay. It was the newest version of the framework at the time.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit over-engineered project, we would say. D-Shop stands for the distributed shop, but we did it for purpose. So to have this sample solution of how you can complicate things and build microservices and make a simple e-commerce with them, and how you can learn about like different patterns when it comes to messaging, internal communication, routing, tracing, monitoring, all these things, right? And it was fine. It gained some popularity. We got some nice opinions about this course, and it's on YouTube there, still up to date. So feel free to use it as a resource to extend your knowledge.
And then we actually let's be honest, we actually enjoyed recording for you these materials, even though it took a while to actually create the whole D-Shop and the D-Shop common, so the infrastructure behind this. But we wanted to create something more, I would say, professional, because let's be honest, if you're familiar with our material, with the distributed .NET Core itself, it was simply like, let's start recording, try not to do a lot of mistakes, and we'll see what will happen. And there were some places during the course that we actually got into trouble, and we decided not to cut the material because we wanted to show you how we can actually get to the proper solution. But because of that, it might be a little boring for some of you who maybe spotted these mistakes instantly. So we decided to create a more professional material. Maybe as you can see with us also, and we decided not to use the D-Shop for this purpose, and there were actually a couple of reasons for that. And the first one, as Piotrek mentioned, D-Shop was pretty much over-engineered project, because it could be done actually with some WordPress. There was I think, at least, so PHP. So basically, we could. I think that some of you might have had this impression that there was over-engineered. The domain itself was kind of boring. That was done on purpose because we wanted to stay at very basic and easy to understand domain. But that was also the disadvantage of this. That was slightly boring. And the third one was that because we wanted to focus more on the technicalities of creating microservices, we did not get really deep into the architecture, right? The architecture was pretty
stylish, I would say.
Yeah. So that was I would say that was very simple, and we did not focus on the proper architectural style depending on the microservice. Each microservice had the same architectural style, which was something between the clean architecture and the
CRUD architecture,
and the slight of CQRS.
Rather
also.
shallow.
Yeah.
So with Pacco, we have a brand new domain, which is actually all about the delivering the packages.
Special transportation.
Special transportation of some special packages. So a little bit more interesting domain. As Darek mentioned, we have the clean architecture approach, things like port adapters. We also talk about fundamentals of domain-driven design, all these sort of things, so you can see the actual layers and the responsibilities, how to not mess your entities, your domain with data and infrastructure. And so we took care of this to make it in a proper way.
Also how to avoid having one object for every purpose. Like, so people tend to have shared models for database, for domain, and for the transportation. So in this course we also describe how to avoid this and how to properly use the abstraction that are given with this clean architecture approach.
Exactly. And just like DShop, you can find it on our organizational GitHub. So there's a Pacco project, and the same idea as with DShop. For the Pacco, you can also find all of its dependent repositories, because we stick to this approach where each service has its own repository, which we also talk about during the course. Why do we think it's probably the best way? So you can find it here, and you can clone it and play with it. We'll get to it soon, I think, how to set it up.
One more thing, we also do not change the idea about the tools and that actually the tools that we're using. So basically, we want to create the Pacco itself will be also cloud agnostic. So we want to use the tools that are part of the also
CNCF stuff, right?
So basically, some of them are part of the CNCF. Most of the projects are actually open source, and the idea is to create the whole infrastructure that would not be depending on any cloud provider. So you can rather either set this up on your on premise, on your private servers, but also on
whether you run it like you said, on your private machine or Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, whenever you can run it whenever you want, because these are open, free to use open source tools. But if you decide to go to Azure and use App Insight, maybe switch some monitoring tool from inside, that's totally fine. So you can do whatever you want with by following this approach.
And the last difference, I think, Pacco is way more resilient, and when it comes to some edge cases with DShop, we did not mention a lot of stuff, especially when it comes to security
and messaging, like guaranteed delivery, outbox pattern, inbox pattern, this transactional approach to processing messages, all those edge cases that some of you might not be aware about, but there is a chance
some of you actually noticed and pointed in the comments. So
but these are the things that sometimes might kick you hard, and it's important to know how to deal with them. So we put more emphasis on this stuff in Pacco as well. So that's pretty much about Pacco, I think. You can find, just like we said, on our website, you can find all of the links to these courses, to these projects. Also, one more thing to mention is that with the DShop, we have this famous common project. I think each one of you had some sort of common helper util library project. So we had this DShop common or DShop common.
The beauty about the common DShop common, basically the common package, is that you can put everyking in there because everything
it's common.
Because it's common. But this is also the disadvantage that this package actually got quite big, I would say.
So we decided to move all of this stuff from this common package, which had like dependencies to caching, MongoDB, monitoring, tracing, everything, right? I mean, this is fine to have the infrastructural packages for this, but maybe not like a one GAT object package. So we decided to extract it, and we put those things into the project we called Convey. And Convey actually is another open source project of us that maybe you played with, something like SteelToe from Pivotal, which is based on a Netflix stuff. So this idea is pretty similar, just to have a set of helper libraries that you can use to easily plug into infrastructure. So you can focus on writing your business code instead of spending weeks or months to set up your infrastructure, monitoring, tracing, all these sort of things, right? So we just use this one. This is like a set of small granular packages.
I would say that this is more like evolution of the DShop common, because not only we did modularize this split into separated NuGet packages, we also did a lot of refactoring, did some writing some packages were rewritten from scratch. Let's say the RabbitMQ, which is now based on the official client for the .NET Core. And there are also some new packages that you can actually find. So this is now the pretty mature set of the NuGet packages that will help you creating. I would say that any kind, not only the microservices, but
already
also
used in production by at least a few people or a few companies. So you can play with it or do some sort of your own framework for, especially for microservices, right? Because this is also important stuff here.
Or you can fork it.
Or you can fork it.
This is
do whatever you want actually. Okay, so let's get into the Pacco, right? So there was the website. There is the course that we're gonna publish hopefully in the next few weeks, June, tops July, we hope.
Yeah.
So let's go to the Pacco, and with Pacco, the stuff is pretty similar to DShop. So you just clone the repository. So let me just copy this link, and here is some new directory which is empty, and let's just do git clone. Okay, now it's cloned. Let me open it in this Finder. You can see that under Pacco we have this the solution, which will open in a few minutes, and we have the scripts. So within scripts you can find there is a script called git clone. So you can either choose git clone shell or git clone PowerShell.
Yeah, so basically, as you mentioned before, we stick to the approach when each microservice has its own repository.
Yes.
So even though we have this solution, this is more like a solution that aggregates all the projects once you actually clone them, and this will help you develop your microservices. But basically, each of them has its own repository that we need to clone. So basically, we don't want you to do this manually. We have this shell scripts.
Yeah. So you just copy it from the scripts next to the Pacco. So do not put it into the Pacco. Just put it next to it. So it looks like this, and go back to your terminal and simply run it with the git bash, PowerShell, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And just git clone shell. It will then, for the first time, clone all of the repos, and then you can just open the solution and build and run the stuff. So it will take maybe like 30 seconds.
Yeah. So in the meantime, we can actually talk about the the requirements. So basically, as you mentioned, we will need the terminal that actually is capable of running the bash scripts.
.NET 3.1.
Yeah. SDK would be the best, and the Docker.
And the Docker, right?
Yeah.
And we will also use VS Code only for actually running the HTTP request via REST client extension.
Yeah.
And for the IDE, choose whatever you want. We'll stick to Rider because right now we are on the macOS. But if you're only in Synchronous Rider Windows, you can use Visual Studio. You can use whatever you want. Yes. But we'll stick to Rider in this course.
Okay, so we have the repositories cloned.
So let's try the first thing. So the overall structure looks like the following. Here is just the Pacco with the solution and the script, and here are all of the depending repositories. So like 2 gateways, we'll talk about them also, and all of the services. And if you open the Pacco, you can see that there is this solution file. Okay, so at first you can try building it via the CLI. So let's see, .NET build, and it should build without any issues for the first time. And then you can open it in your IDE. So let me, for example, start Rider, and let's just open a solution. Okay, so let's open Rider and the solution file. So Pacco SLN, open, and it will open in the IDE, and you can build it from here. So before it opens, because for the first time it will take a while to just restore all the NuGet packages, maybe let's try to run the infrastructure. Okay, let's see how we can use Docker in that scenario. So again, if we go back, let me just put it there.
Yeah, let's say that also worth mentioning that the infrastructure is pretty complex for this project.
10 tools, I think.
Yeah, and of course we could install them, each of them on our machine, but it would take a while, especially that some of them also require additional installation, like the RabbitMQ requires Erlang and so forth.
Yeah.
So that would take a while, and also it makes no sense because once you actually don't use the infrastructure,
you'll have to remove it, stop the services. It will be trouble.
Yeah. So for this particular development purposes, we'll use the Docker.
Yeah, exactly. So just in the Pacco again, next to the scripts, you will find the compose file, compose directory, where there will be all of these Docker compose files. So you can find their infrastructure.yaml, where all of this Docker infrastructure is defined, and simply run it for the first time. So just type docker cd compose and docker-compose -f and then infrastructure and then up, and I will put it with -d, which is for the detach mode, so it will run in the background. And if you don't have the images, it will download them for the first time, so it will just take a few minutes probably. So let's try with docker ps if it's up and running. Okay, up 8 seconds. Now we can, for example, open the RabbitMQ, so 15672, and log in with the default guest. Okay, let's see. Now, okay, it seems to be up and running.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it seems that our infrastructure is already there. It took like maybe 10 seconds to start all these parts. So now let's start the services, and you can start them in actually multiple ways. So of course, the first and the most probably simple way would be to open your solution, and then you can just start any of the services via startup project. You can also make them run as a multiple startup projects from Rider or the
Visual Studio.
The Studio Rider is called Composite, as far as I remember.
Yeah, and in Visual Studio it's multiple startup projects. Yeah.
And you can also start it via terminal because it's .NET Core based, so you can start apps in a way.
Yeah, that's the beauty of microservices, that you can actually, if you have some scenario for testing, you're not necessarily have to run all of the microservices, just the one that actually are involved.
For testing, I wouldn't say it's a beauty that you have to start 10 services.
Yeah.
But for local development, it's nice that you don't have to start everything. So let's say you want to start this first service, so you can open it, and in each service we have the similar structure. We have the SRC with the source files, the projects. So in each SRC, you should find the API project, which contains the program CS that you can run. And from here, we can just type .NET run, and it should start the service. So I just wait a few seconds for the first time.
Yeah.
Okay, here is our service. So it's up and running on this port 5001. We can kill it, and let's go above. And here, also on the service level, you will find that there is a scripts directory. So you can just type script start, and it will do the same for you. But then you don't have to go under src/API directory. You can just call, even in a loop, script start shell and start the services that you want. So you can do it from terminal. You could also do it with PM2 tool, which is a very nice tool for starting your services. You could define your whole stack there and just run it with this tool.
I think that this stack is defined actually. If we get back to the script, or maybe I
think it was there. Not sure if it's still
the services. I'm not quite sure. I think
it was there. Okay, probably.
maybe there will be some
we
definition.
need to check.
Yeah.
Okay, but if you want to start all the services at once, actually in a simpler way, you can do it with Docker as well, right? So if you go back to the VS Code, next to the infrastructure, you will find this services local YAML, which is actually, again, the definition for a Docker Compose for all of our microservices. So this file would build all of these services based on their Docker files, and then you can just run them as containers. So I already built them before the recording, so we can just go to the Pacco Compose again, and then -f and services local, and then you could do build and just wait, for example, a few minutes. You can make it with parallel to make it a little bit faster, to speed up this process. And let's just do it up without the -d, so we can see that it will take our terminal, and there will be like 10 services rendering their logs.
Yeah, a lot of logs.
Yeah, in parallel.
Yeah, but this actually, once the services are bootstrapping, actually, as you can see, a lot of things actually happen.
Yeah, a lot of stuff, a lot of colors, so it's already nice. Okay.
So maybe this convince colleagues to use the microservices.
And admins. And then you can go, for example, to localhost 9090, which is the Prometheus interface. And here you can go to status targets and find that all of the services should be with green up. So monitoring is working. And
of course,
well,
we'll discuss what the Prometheus
Yeah,
is
yeah.
actually, why we do need to use it, and
but for now it's nice. There is something green and everything is up. And
Yeah.
actually, we just clone the code, build, and everything is green.
Yeah.
So it doesn't happen too often.
And we can also from the browser we can actually see that each microservice
right.
works.
So starting from 5000, which is our gateway, we can go to 5001, 5002, 3, and so on. And there are all the services up to 5009 or something. And then, in order to run the request, right, you could of course run them via browser, the HTTP request, but only the GET ones. You can use CRL, Postman, Fiddler, but here we are using the REST client, so VS Code.
Yeah, extension for the VS
very
Code.
cool extension REST client. And in each repository, you will find at the top level, you will find this REST file, which contains the definition for executing this HTTP request. So they start with this three hashes, right? And then you can click on send request. And also in the gateway, you will find this Pacco sample scenario REST file. That is actually the flow that you would expect as the end user, because there is no UI, at least for now. So you can just click through those requests and you will see, you don't have to do anything, just click by them, because all of these responses or headers are being passed further. So let's just do sign up for the first time.
Yeah, so just to make it clear, so looking from the versioning perspective, or maybe from the repository perspective, this is nothing more but the text, this REST file. We simply have the text definition for each request, but this extension makes it actually interactive. So this allows us to create the HTTP request directly from the VS Code. So very cool extension.
Yeah. So I already clicked like a 10 request. Just I'm somewhere in the middle of the flow. I made an order. I added a partial to this order, and it's waiting to be delivered, and so on. So right now we can already go, for example, into localhost, and the longest port ever, 16686, which stands for the Jaeger UI, for the tracing, distributed tracing. And here we can go, for example, to this availability or the gateway. We can look for the traces and see that there were some requests that, for example, triggered under the hood few different services. So it was one simple request, and then there are like 5 services
involved actually to process this.
Yeah, so this is the distributed tracing, like in general, and you can see what's going on with your system, and a lot of different tools, right? These are just maybe free services to talk about, like free tools, very briefly. Yeah. So we do encourage you to just clone the code, play with the code, check the patterns, check our approach, this clean architecture, DDD, CQRS, whatever fancy names you put there. And well, also I think remember that besides the open source code, we also have the Gitter communities. So just feel free to open the Gitter. We have the community from Microservices.net. We had the one for the DShop, but now we are migrating to this new one. Yeah. So just whatever you choose, whether you will purchase the course or not, you are just welcome to talk about the microservices. Yeah. Whatever you want.
I would say I would put this way. If you are new to the microservices, I would start with the distributed.NET Core. If you're not quite sure whether this will actually suit your needs, that was a fine project. Of course, that was the older versions.
Not so clean approach. In terms of architecture, but
this gives you the idea of what the microservices really are. The new course, the paid one that we're actually making, this will cover way more architectural topics, way more security and edge cases. So this will be first of all, we believe that the quality will be much better. We'll do our best to actually make it better. But also this will be way more complete as a whole course.
Yeah, actually it's based on the workshops that we do as trainers, mostly in Poland, but also abroad. Over 5 days of workshops, I would say like 6 to 7 days, because there's like even more topics than we do during 5 days workshops. So we just gather the knowledge and just make a recording out of it. So I think that's it from us, and stay tuned for the first demo recordings that we'll publish.
Yeah, first demo will appear, I think, in next 2 weeks. and
Yeah,
then
probably.
with each new week we'll publish new video just so you could see whether this is actually something that you would be interested in. So I think that's
Yeah.
That's pretty much. Do we have anything to add?
No, just try out the Pacco, clone it. Check our blog. We also have the long article there about all these things that we talk about in this video, and have fun with it.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So see ya.
Thank you. Bye.